The quantum sensors aboard Deep Space Monitoring Station Epsilon 7 had never registered anything like it. Senior Analyst Korax, a veteran Nixilian whose crystalline skin reflected the soft blue glow of holographic displays, adjusted his instruments for the third time in as many hours. The readings couldn't be right. They suggested energy signatures that defied known physics. "Control, this is DSM Station Epsilon 7. Korax transmitted, his multifaceted eyes fixed on the pulsing anomaly displayed before him. "Requesting confirmation of readings in Sector 224 Beta. We're detecting temporal distortions unlike anything in our database." The response came almost immediately. "Epsilon 7, readings confirmed. Similar signatures detected by stations Gamma 3 and Theta 12. Priority alert has been issued." Within hours, the Coalition's leading scientific minds gathered in the Grand Observatory of New Thessalia, the intellectual heart of known space. The ancient amphitheater, carved from living crystal, hosted beings from across the galaxy. Crystalline Nixilians like Korax sat alongside tentacled Vorgarians and the ethereal, energy-based Lumini. Dr. Vanna Tall, the most respected temporal physicist in the Coalition, moved through the crowded chamber with practiced grace. Her bioluminescent patterns, a mark of her species' emotional state, pulsed with excitement as she studied the data streams projected above the central podium. The power requirements alone would drain a small star, argued Professor Zix of the Vorgarian Science Academy, their tentacles writhing in agitation. No known civilization has achieved such energy manipulation. "The temporal distortion patterns suggest a rupture in space-time," countered a Lumini researcher, their form shifting like aurora in their excitement. "But the stability matrices are unlike anything in our records." Vanna barely heard them. Her attention remained fixed on a particular sequence in the data, a pattern that stirred something deep in her memory. With deliberate movements, she reached into her robes and withdrew an ancient data crystal, its surface etched with symbols rarely seen in modern Coalition space. The room fell silent as she approached the central interface. Data crystals of this age were precious artifacts, remnants of the time before the Great Collapse. With reverence, she inserted the crystal into the reader. New holograms sprang to life, displaying historical readings taken over a millennium ago. The patterns matched the current anomaly with stunning precision. Quantum signatures, energy fluctuations, even the subtle distortions in subspace aligned perfectly. "By the first light," whispered Zix, their tentacles now completely still. "What are we seeing?" Vanna's voice carried clearly through the hushed chamber. "These readings were recorded by my ancestor during humanity's last stand. They are the power signatures of their greatest achievement, the Terran Alliance Supercarriers." A wave of murmurs swept through the assembly. Humanity was more legend than history to most of the gathered scientists. Stories of their incredible adaptability, their technological prowess, and their final mysterious disappearance had become almost mythological. "Impossible," declared the Lumini researcher, their form flickering with doubt. "The human species was lost in the Great Collapse. Their facilities were destroyed, their worlds rendered uninhabitable. No vessel could have survived." They were interrupted by a priority alert. New data streamed in from the monitoring stations. The anomaly was growing, its energy signatures intensifying. Predictive models suggested something massive was preparing to emerge into normal space. Vanna clutched her data crystal, her bioluminescence taking on a deep blue hue of anticipation. "My ancestor wrote of a final project, a vessel equipped with experimental technology that could fold space itself. They called it the Artemis Initiative." The observatory's AI issued a priority warning as gravitational sensors went wild. Something was coming through, something bigger than any known Coalition vessel. "Send word to the High Council," Vanna commanded, her voice carrying the weight of history. Tell them humanity has returned." In the depths of space, reality began to bend as something ancient and powerful prepared to step through the veil of time itself. The Coalition First Contact Fleet held position at the edge of the temporal anomaly, their sleek vessels arranged in a ceremonial crescent formation. Admiral Nixis of the Nixilian Navy watched from the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn as space itself began to ripple and fold. "Energy readings are off the scale," reported her science officer. "The anomaly is stabilizing. Something's coming through." The first thing they saw was the bow of the vessel emerging from the swirling vortex, like the tip of a spear piercing reality. The ship's hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, covered in panels of a material unknown to coalition science. As more of the vessel emerged, the watching fleet grew silent with awe. "Size comparison complete," the AI announced. "The vessel is approximately 8.4 kilometers in length. Mass estimates indicate." There was a pause, as if even the AI was stunned. "It outmasses our entire fleet combined." The last of the massive ships slipped into normal space, and the temporal anomaly collapsed behind it. Ancient markings became visible along its hull, and powerful floodlights illuminated the name, Thais Artemis. "By the eternal void," Nixis whispered. The legends were true. Before the admiral could issue orders, every communication system in the fleet activated simultaneously. The message came through in perfect coalition standard, the translation so precise it must have been recently updated from their own databases. "This is Captain Raven Blackwood of the Terran Alliance ship Artemis. Our temporal displacement systems have been compromised. We require immediate assistance with chronometric calibration." In that moment, as the lost Supercarrier hung against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. Humanity, long thought extinct, had returned, and they had brought with them technology that would change everything. On the bridge of the Artemis, Captain Raven Blackwood stood before her command interface, her dark uniform pristine despite the chaos of the past few hours. Through the massive view screen, she could see the coalition fleet, ships of designs she never encountered, yet somehow familiar. The bridge crew worked their stations with practiced efficiency, but she could sense their underlying tension. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The ship's AI, designated HERMES, materialized beside her. Its holographic form appeared as a shifting constellation of stars arranged in a vaguely humanoid shape. "Temporal displacement confirmed, Captain. Based on coalition transmissions and stellar positioning, we have emerged approximately 1,157 years after our departure point. Ship systems are at 97.4% efficiency. Crew stasis pods report all vital signs nominal." Lieutenant Commander Marcus Thorne, her first officer, approached with a data tablet displaying preliminary scans. "Captain, you need to see this. The coalition, it's changed. Species that were barely warp-capable in our time are now major powers. And humanity." His voice trailed off. "Show me," Blackwood ordered, her expression remaining neutral despite the weight settling in her chest. The data painted a stark picture. Earth was listed as a historical preservation site, quarantined after the Great Collapse. Human colonies were marked as lost civilization zones. According to coalition records, humanity had been extinct for over a millennium. A message from the coalition flagship drew her attention. Admiral Nixis appeared on screen, her crystalline features catching the light. "Captain Blackwood, on behalf of the Coalition Council, I welcome you to our time. We had thought your species lost to history. Your arrival will change everything." "Admiral," Blackwood replied with diplomatic precision, "I understand this is an unprecedented situation. My crew and I have been through a temporal displacement, and we carry vital data about the final days of Earth. I request permission to send a delegation to discuss our situation." "Of course, Captain. Though I must inform you, your ship's technology level exceeds current coalition regulations by several factors." "Admiral," Blackwood interrupted gently, "the Artemis carries something far more important than technology. We carry the legacy of Earth, genetic banks, cultural archives, and the combined knowledge of human civilization. We were meant to be humanity's ark, but instead, we've become its returning vanguard. Hours later, Blackwood led a small delegation aboard the Coalition flagship. The alien vessel's architecture was both familiar and strange. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures in ways that would have been impossible in her time. Dr. Vanna Towle waited to greet them, her bioluminescent patterns shifting with barely contained excitement. "Captain," Vanna began, "your arrival has sparked intense debate within the Coalition. Some see it as a miracle, others as a potential threat to galactic stability. The technology your ship possesses, it exceeds our theoretical limits. We didn't choose to come to this time," Blackwood responded, walking alongside the alien scientist. "The Artemis project was humanity's contingency plan. When the collapse began, we were supposed to find a safe harbor, preserve what we could of Earth's legacy. Something went wrong during our departure, or perhaps something went exactly as planned." They entered a vast chamber where representatives from various Coalition species had gathered. The air was thick with tension and curiosity. The Lumini Elder floated forward, their energy form rippling with ancient wisdom. "Captain, we must ask, what do you intend to do now? Your civilization is gone. Your world's transformed by time. You are, in essence, refugees from history itself." Blackwood stood straighter, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We are more than refugees. We are the guardians of humanity's legacy, and we have a responsibility to both our ancestors and to the galaxy's future. The Artemis carries seeds of Earth's biosphere, genetic records of our species, and technologies that could benefit all civilizations. We don't seek to reclaim what was lost. We seek to build something new." Her words sparked intense discussion among the gathered representatives. Commander Thorne leaned close to whisper, "They're afraid, Captain. Our arrival represents an enormous shift in the balance of power." Before Blackwood could respond, alarms blared throughout the Coalition vessel. A young Nixilian officer burst into the chamber, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent patterns. "Multiple ships have just emerged from hyperspace. They're broadcasting reclaimer identification codes." The Lumini Elder's form flickered with concern. "The reclaimers, they believe they are the true inheritors of ancient technologies. They will see your arrival as a threat to their authority." Through the chamber's viewing portal, Blackwood watched as a fleet of aggressive-looking vessels took up attack positions. The Artemis hung in space behind them, its dark hull a testament to humanity's endurance. She had led her crew across more than a millennium, and she wouldn't fail them now. "Open a channel to the Artemis," she commanded, "and get me everything you have on these reclaimers. If they want to test humanity's legacy, they'll learn why our species survived as long as it did." The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of the Artemis and its crew, but the future course of galactic civilization. Humanity had returned to a changed galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. The reclaimer ships hung in space like predatory creatures, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. Inside the Coalition flagship's conference chamber, Captain Blackwood studied the tactical display with growing concern. The Artemis dwarfed the hostile vessels, but they had positioned themselves with clear tactical precision. The reclaimers emerged shortly after the Great Collapse, Dr. Vanna Towle explained, her bioluminescence pulsing with anxiety. "They believe themselves the rightful inheritors of all advanced precursor technologies. Your arrival challenges their entire ideology." "Incoming transmission," announced the Coalition ship's eye. "Reclaimer flagship requesting direct communication." A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber. The figure that appeared was humanoid, but heavily augmented with cybernetic enhancements. "I am Hierarch Dominion of the Reclaimer Ascendancy. The vessel you call Artemis belongs in our custody. Its technologies must be preserved and properly utilized according to Reclaimer doctrine." Blackwood stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of 1,000 years. "This ship and its contents are the property of humanity. We are not some long-dead civilization whose artifacts you can claim. We are very much alive." "You are an aberration," Dominion replied coldly. a temporal anomaly that threatens the established order. Surrender your vessel, or we will take it by force." Before Blackwood could respond, Hieronymus's voice came through her neural link. "Captain, I've completed the analysis of our temporal displacement data. You need to see this immediately." "Admiral Nixus, I request secure access to your quantum communication array," Blackwood said. "I need to contact my ship." In the Artemis primary data core, Hieronymus projected a complex web of temporal calculations. The AI's stellar form flickered with what almost looked like concern as Blackwood and Commander Thorne studied the data. "This can't be right," Thorne muttered, his face pale. "The temporal drive's activation sequence. It wasn't random failure. Someone programmed this exact outcome." "Correct," Hermes confirmed. "The temporal coordinates were precisely calculated. We were meant to arrive at this specific point in time. Furthermore, I've detected a quantum lock data cache in my core programming. It was designed to unlock only after we completed this temporal jump." "Show me," Blackwood ordered. The data streamed across the holographic display: technical specifications, strategic assessments, and finally, a message. The face that appeared was familiar to both officers. Admiral Catherine Drake, the architect of the Artemis project. "If you're seeing this," Drake's recording began, "then our final gambit has succeeded. The Great Collapse wasn't a natural disaster. We discovered that our civilization was being systematically dismantled by entities we came to call the Harbingers. They operated across vast timeframes, subtly manipulating events to prevent any civilization from achieving true temporal mastery. The Artemis project wasn't just an arc." Drake continued, her expression grim. "It was a temporal Trojan horse. We couldn't fight the Harbingers in our time. They had too much control, too much influence. But by sending you forward, by preserving humanity's greatest achievements in a way they couldn't predict or prevent, we created a chance to break their cycle." Blackwood's mind raced. "Here are MEs. Analyze the reclaimer ships. Compare their tech signatures to this new data." Analysis complete, the AI reported after a moment. "Their quantum signature matches the Harbinger patterns from Admiral Drake's data. The reclaimers are their agents in this time period, possibly without even knowing it. That's why they're so desperate to claim the Artemis." Thorne realized. Their masters must have detected our arrival. A priority alert flashed across the displays. The reclaimer ships were powering up their weapons arrays. On the Coalition flagship, alarms blared as energy readings spiked. "They're not going to wait for our answer," Blackwood said grimly. "Here are Aeneas. Initiate Protocol Omega. Transmit Admiral Drake's data to both the Coalition flagship and every major Coalition information network simultaneously. If the Harbingers want to operate from the shadows, let's shine a light on them." "Captain," Commander Thorne warned, "if we do this, there's no going back. We'll be declaring war on an enemy that's been manipulating galactic civilization for millennia." Blackwood's expression hardened. "They declared war on humanity when they tried to wipe us out. We're just finally fighting back." She opened a channel to Admiral Nixus. "Admiral, I need your help. What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about galactic history." As the Artemis quantum transmitters began broadcasting the truth about the Harbingers, the reclaimer ships launched their attack. Energy beams lanced out across space, only to be absorbed by the Artemis's advanced hull. The human supercarrier's response was immediate and overwhelming. Point defense systems that had slept for a millennium awakened, their targeting algorithms predicting and countering every reclaimer maneuver. The Artemis's main weapons remained silent. They didn't need to fire. Every attempt to breach their defenses only served to demonstrate the gap between true human technology and the pale imitations the reclaimers had cobbled together. "Your masters made a mistake," Blackwood transmitted to the reclaimer flagship. "They thought they destroyed humanity. Instead, they gave us a reason to become stronger than they could imagine. Now, shall we discuss surrender terms?" As Coalition reinforcements began arriving in response to the attack, Blackwood knew this was just the beginning. The real war, The one humanity had prepared for across more than 1,000 years was about to begin. The Coalition Grand Council chamber erupted in chaos as Admiral Drake's revelations echoed through the quantum networks. Representatives from 100 species argued, threatened, and demanded explanations. The evidence was irrefutable. Subtle manipulations across millennia, civilizations guided away from certain technological paths, and always, the suppression of temporal research. Captain Blackwood stood at the center of the storm, her uniform still bearing scorch marks from the Reclaimer attack. Behind her, a hologram showed the Artemis holding position above New Thessalia, its massive form a dark reminder of humanity's unexpected return. The Harbingers have been shepherding our civilizations like cattle, High Counselor Zena of the Lumini declared, her energy form crackling with rage. But why? What could they fear so much about temporal advancement? Control, Commander Thorne answered, stepping forward with a data crystal. Hermes has finished analyzing the complete Harbinger dataset. They're not preventing our advancement. They're harvesting it. The crystal's contents projected across the chamber. Countless civilizations risen and fell, each pushing the boundaries of science and technology in slightly different ways. And at their peak, each civilization vanished, their achievements somehow lost to time. They're running experiments, Blackwood explained, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Each civilization is allowed to develop along specific paths, solving different pieces of a larger puzzle. When they achieve their designated breakthrough, the Harbingers trigger a collapse and collect the results. The Great Collapse, Dr. Vanna Tal whispered, her bioluminescence dimming with horror. It wasn't just about humanity. Every major civilization lost in that period. We're all approaching temporal mastery from different angles, Thorne confirmed. The Harbingers couldn't allow that level of convergence. It threatened their control of the timeline. A warning klaxon cut through the discussion. Admiral Nixus's voice came through the emergency channel. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. Reclaimer reinforcements emerging throughout the system. The tactical display showed dozens of ships materializing around New Thessalia. But these weren't just Reclaimer vessels. Their designs incorporated elements from countless lost civilizations. This is Hierarch Dominion. The transmission cut through all channels. You have been deceived. The human vessel represents a temporal corruption that must be excised. Stand aside or share their fate. On the Artemis's bridge, Hermes' holographic form expanded urgently. Captain, I've detected quantum signature fluctuations in their fleet. They're attempting to create a temporal deadlock, a field that would freeze us in a moment of time, trapping the Artemis forever. Not if we strike first, Blackwood responded, her fingers dancing across the tactical interface. Initiate Protocol Phoenix. Authorization Blackwood Omega-7. The Supercarrier's hull began to shimmer, panels shifting and realigning. In the ship's core, systems that had remained dormant for a millennium awakened. This was humanity's ultimate contingency, not just a weapon, but a key to unlock the very foundations of space-time. By the first light, Vanna gasped, watching from the council chamber. The power readings, they're rewriting local physics. The Artemis response to the Reclaimer attack wasn't just a display of superior firepower. It was a demonstration of why the Harbingers had feared humanity's potential. The ship's temporal core pulsed, creating bubbles of altered time throughout the battlefield. Reclaimer weapons fire slowed to a crawl, while the Artemis counterattacks arrived faster than any defense could track. But the Harbingers' pawns had numbers on their side. For every ship the Artemis neutralized, 2 more took its place. The Supercarrier's hull began showing signs of strain as it maintained its temporal manipulations. We can't keep this up indefinitely, Thorne reported, gripping his console as another impact rocked the ship. The temporal core is approaching critical levels. We don't need to defeat them, Blackwood replied, a fierce smile crossing her face. We just need to prove it's possible. She opened a channel to the Coalition fleet. Admiral Nixus, remember how I said the Artemis carried more than just technology? It's time to show you what humanity left as its true legacy. At her command, Hermes initiated the final phase of Protocol Phoenix. Throughout the ship, hidden quantum processors activated, broadcasting technical data directly to the Coalition fleet. Not weapons specifications or tactical data, but something far more precious, the fundamental principles behind humanity's temporal mastery. You wanted to know why the Harbingers feared us. Blackwood transmitted to all channels. Because we learned to share our knowledge, to adapt and grow stronger together. We didn't hoard our discoveries like the Reclaimers. We used them to lift others up. The Coalition ships began incorporating the human temporal principles into their own systems in real time, their advanced AIs rapidly adapting the techniques to their own technology. The balance of power shifted as ship after ship developed localized temporal fields, neutralizing the Reclaimer temporal deadlock attempts. Dominion's voice came through once more, but this time it carried an edge of fear. What have you done? We've done what humanity does best, Blackwood answered. We've changed the rules of the game. The Harbingers wanted to control the evolution of civilization. Well, now every species in the Coalition has the tools to forge their own path through time. Your master's experiment is over. As if in response to her words, the Reclaimer fleet's coordination began to break down. Ships turned on each other as hidden programming conflicts emerged, the Harbingers' careful control splintering in the face of humanity's temporal revelation. In the aftermath of the Battle of New Thessalia, the Artemis floated in high orbit above the crystalline world, its dark hull bearing the scars of combat. The Reclaimer fleet had scattered, their Harbinger programming shattered by humanity's temporal revelations, but victory had come at a cost. Throughout the massive vessel, repair drones worked tirelessly to stabilize damaged systems. In the temporal core chamber, Captain Blackwood stood before the pulsing heart of the ship, its light casting long shadows across her face. "Status report," she ordered, watching as engineers from both her crew and the Coalition worked to maintain the damaged systems. Hermes materialized beside her, the AI's stellar form dimmer than usual. Temporal core stability at 64% and holding. The strain of mass broadcasting temporal physics to the Coalition fleet caused significant damage to our primary systems. However, the AI's form brightened slightly. The data transfer was successful. Coalition scientists are already advancing beyond our theoretical models. They're adapting the technology faster than we expected, Commander Thorne added, approaching with a data tablet. Dr. Vanna's team has combined our temporal principles with their quantum manipulation techniques. They're achieving things we never thought possible. Blackwood nodded, a slight smile crossing her face. Just as Admiral Drake predicted, we didn't just give them the tools. We gave them the inspiration to surpass us. The ship's communication system activated, displaying a priority message from the Coalition Grand Council. High Counselor Zena's luminous form appeared before them. "Captain Blackwood, your actions have changed the course of galactic history." The Lumini Elder began. The Harbinger's influence spanned millions of years, shepherding civilizations toward predetermined paths. By breaking their control, you've given us true freedom to evolve. But we must ask, what comes next? It was the question Blackwood had been preparing to answer since the moment the Artemis emerged from its temporal jump. She gestured to Hermes, who initiated a ship-wide protocol. Throughout the massive vessel, hidden chambers began to activate. Stasis fields dropped, revealing vast archives of human knowledge, genetic banks containing the diversity of Earth's biosphere, and technological blueprints that went far beyond weapons and defenses. The Artemis was never meant to be just a warship, Blackwood explained, her voice carrying to every corner of the council chamber. It was designed to be a seed, a starting point for a new kind of civilization, one that could stand against the Harbingers not through force, but through cooperation and shared growth. The holographic displays showed countless laboratories, hydroponic bays, and cultural archives. We carry within our halls the combined legacy of humanity, not just our technology, but our art, our music, our stories, the genetic codes of Earth's lost species waiting to be reborn. the collected wisdom of 1,000 generations, preserved not for ourselves, but for everyone. Dr. Vanna stepped forward, her bioluminescence pulsing with realization. You're proposing more than an alliance. You want to create a synthesis between our civilizations. The Harbingers maintained control by keeping civilizations separate, allowing them to advance only along narrow paths. Thorne explained. We propose the opposite. Complete technological and cultural exchange. Let each species contribute their unique perspectives and abilities. There will be those who resist. Admiral Nix's warned through the communication channel. The reclaimers are scattered but not destroyed. And the Harbingers themselves will find themselves facing something they've never encountered before. Blackwood finished. A unified galaxy, advancing along all possible paths simultaneously. No more controlled experiments, no more harvesting of innovations. Together, we'll forge a future they can't predict or control. The council chamber erupted in discussion, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Battle of New Thessalia had proven what was possible when civilizations worked together. One by one, the representatives voted to accept humanity's proposal. In the weeks that followed, the Artemis became the heart of a new era. Its vast halls transformed into learning centers, where species from across the galaxy shared knowledge and culture. Coalition scientists worked alongside human engineers, combining their understanding of quantum mechanics with Earth's temporal physics. In the hydroponics bays, extinct Earth species were reborn alongside alien flora, creating new hybrid ecosystems. But perhaps most importantly, in a specially constructed chamber at the heart of the ship, representatives from every coalition species gathered to plan their next steps. The Harbingers were still out there, watching from the shadows of time. But they no longer faced isolated civilizations they could manipulate and control. There's a human saying, Blackwood told the assembled representatives, standing before a window that showed the glittering expanse of the galaxy. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Apart, we were vulnerable to manipulation and control. Together, she smiled as a coalition ship successfully performed its first controlled temporal jump, using a combination of human and alien technology. Together, we're writing a new chapter in the story of the galaxy. The Artemis hung in space above New Thessalia, no longer just a relic of humanity's past, but a beacon lighting the way to the future. The ship that had carried humanity's legacy across time had become something even greater, a symbol of what was possible when civilizations chose to rise together. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon against the Harbingers hadn't been their advanced technology or temporal mastery. It had been their ability to inspire others, to share their knowledge freely, and to believe in the potential of unity. The lost Supercarrier hadn't just changed the balance of the galaxy, it had transformed it into something entirely new. And somewhere in the depths of time, the Harbingers watched as their carefully controlled experiment blossomed into something they had never predicted and could never control. A future where the boundaries between civilizations dissolved, and the combined potential of all species reached for the stars together.